Hey everybody, back again for plant sessions. How are you? My name is Kristen. I am one of the founders of Tula, and I'm very happy that you are joining me today. We are talking about the Senecio plant. I have a Senecio string of pearls and a Senecio string of dolphins in my hands, and they are cause for some frustration around proper watering and, oh, look at that. Nice for the cuttings table. Proper watering and care, especially in the winter months. So we're hearing a lot of people struggling around just like when to water, how to water, and that either their Senecio is just drying up or it's mushing and basically melting due to overwatering. So the drying up is due to underwatering, and the melting and mushiness is due to overwatering. So let's try, I'm gonna try to offer you tips of the trade to avoid the drying up and the mushiness. So I would suggest, because for me to try to teach about watering, it's gonna make this video a lot longer. So I would suggest checking out how to water an arid plant, which is one of the earlier plant session videos that we recorded, which has a lot of helpful tips on how to think about watering, and then come to us, talk to us, write to us. We're always happy to talk about watering. So let's talk about the Senecio. So the Senecio plants have really, really fine root systems. That's where it all begins. So let's start at the roots. It's fine as threads of, t-shirts and clothing, very, very fine. And so they are easily overwatered, and they're easily underwatered. So finding the balance for these guys is the key, which goes for all plants, but in particular, more light water sensitive plants like the Senecio. So when you water these guys, you really have to consider a few things. They really do need a few hours of direct sun. And direct sun, I mean with sun hitting the plant, and if you cast a shadow over the plant that, if you put your hand in front of the plant, it casts a hard shadow on your plant. That means direct sun. So they need a few hours of that. They also do well in a very bright and warm diffused light. Now, the amount of sun that you get is going to depend on how you water and the frequency of your watering. So if you're getting a ton of sun and it's really hot in your place, then you're going to be watering more often and more thoroughly. If you're living in more of a diffused light apartment and the Senecio is getting a good amount of sun, but it's not that really hot, beaming direct sun, then you're going to water less frequently and less thoroughly. So those are the two situations. You can't grow these plants in a really, really low light environment. You can. I shouldn't say you can't, because you can. But you will really have to be careful with watering, and you might not have a lot of growth. So I'm not going to really talk about that environment because it's not ideal, and it makes for a more difficult care routine. So let's talk about if this plant was getting its ideal care, which is a lot of sun and heat and warmth through the day, which is what it's getting in our arid room. It was just getting blasted with south-facing windows, and then we have west-facing windows, so it gets that afternoon light and it gets that morning and midday sun. So right now, these plants are thirsty. How can I tell that without actually putting my fingers in these plants? I can tell it by the weight. I really love to do the weight test when caring for plants, especially cacti and succulent plants. The weight test is all about when you water your plants, they become heavy. When the water has evaporated out of your plant soil, they become light. It's as easy as that. And roots grow with oxygen. So roots can't be healthy if they're constantly sitting in wet, soaking wet soil, which is how root rot happens. So if you're overwatering your plants, then you're drowning your roots, and you're rotting the core of the plant, and then the whole plant dies. That's not what we want to do. Or let's just try to avoid it at least. So this guy in particular is very dry. And how can I tell? The weight. And then also now I'm doing my double check and I'm putting my finger in the soil, and the soil is very hard and crackly, and the soil is actually contracting from the sides of the pot. So same thing goes for both of these plants. This plant is actually lighter than this plant. So I actually might hold on watering this Senecio string of pearls. Let me see. Oh, it's actually really dry. Oh my God, it's really dry. So I don't know, maybe there's some moisture in the bottom here, but it can take some water. And the reason that I say that is because the topsoil is so dry that it's hardened and cracking, and it is contracting from the sides. And when I mean contracting from the sides, I mean that there's actually space. It might be hard to see that in the video, but there's actually space between here and the root ball. So between the pot and the root ball, the moisture has evaporated so much that the ball has contracted in. So let's water this guy. And ideally, with succulents, you want the soil to arrive to a point of dryness that when you introduce water into the root ball, that the water does not plane at the top of the soil, which means that your soil is too condensed and too dry, that it's actually just dry enough that water drains more quickly through the soil out of the drainage holes. So this guy is very dry. It's taking longer for the water to drain from the bottom. I just put in quite a bit, but let's wait and see. We should add some more. So let's add some more. And what we want, because we want to water this plant thoroughly, we want that. So water has started to drain from the drainage holes, which is what we want. Perfect. Now it feels a lot heavier, and I might do that one more time because I know it's going back in a really hot and sunny environment. One more time. Nice, thorough water. Water drains right through very quickly this time. Perfect. That's what you want. I like to also take these guys to the shower to get the foliage clean because you don't want them piling up with dust. But for this example, that's great. So now I can put it back in the window. It's nice and heavy again. It's got some weight to it. That was thoroughly watered. So thoroughly for us is that you introduce water to the root ball and water drains from the bottom. That's a thorough water. I'm not saturating this soil. So if I was to squeeze the root ball, like I'm squeezing, you don't want water to be draining like a sponge. You never want your soil that wet. Especially, you don't want to water that way in the wintertime. So let's water this pearl, this beauty. And let's add some water at the top here. Let's see how fast it drains through this soil. You see I'm going all the way around. I'm getting the whole surface of this root ball, and there we go. All right, beautiful. See, this guy was not as dry because it's draining a lot faster. See the difference? All right, beautiful. So that is a very quick tutorial on how to water properly these guys. Now, it's always going to depend on your environment, and that I know is like not the answer that you sometimes want to hear because you're like, what does that mean, Kristen? But just think about sun, heat, and how your water is going to balance out the sun and the heat of your environment. So if it's cool and you're not getting a lot of sun, then you don't want to water too frequently or water too thoroughly. Always wait until your Senecio plants are nice and airy and light. Soil has contracted from the sides and it's even hardened at the top. If you're ever unsure, should I water or should I not water? Just don't. If the plant is not wrinkled and drying up and really brown, then it obviously is okay. and it can hang on a few more days or even a week until you water next. So the easiest thing to do with these plants is to overwater them. So if you can avoid that, then you can keep them alive for a lot longer. So I hope that's helpful, everybody. If you have any questions, please write to us, care@tula.house. That's care@tula.house. My name is Kristen. These are our plant sessions. I really appreciate you tuning in and caring so much about your plants to watch. Okay, see you guys soon. Bye-bye.